Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. So today we'd like to have a conversation about the evolution of the Erie County Community College from an idea into a reality and our role in making Erie County a better place. So let's start by talking a little bit about your personal and professional background. I understand your PhD dissertation is in educational leadership.
Yeah. So, my story is like a lot of people. I happened to go to a community college, changed my life. I got deeply passionate about learning, didn't know much about kind of what graduate school was like or what teaching was like, but I realized my nerdiness was like able to go on full stream. So, I actually swore off school after my master's degree. My oldest child was born. I was trying to raise a baby and work a job and finish my master's thesis. And I was like, I am done, never going back.
Mm.
Not happening. So, and then life happens. I started teaching at a community college, and then 4 or 5 years later, I thought, I think I can do that. I can do that doctoral program, and so I did. So I jumped in, and like many doctorate students, my interests were varied, right?
Mhm.
So my background, I taught speech and theater, and so my dissertation area, well, I was in the Educational Administration Foundations department. I actually this gets super nerdy, but I'm gonna give you we always say you gotta have the mama test. Can you explain it in simple terms so that your mama would understand it?
Right.
And so the mama test is I looked at the unique ways in which we taught theater that helped students be prepared for a career in that discipline.
Mm.
So the simplest way to explain that to a layperson is like, what we think of law school. You think of the traditional professor who calls out the student and puts them on the spot. Well, that's preparing them for what may happen in an oral argument in a courtroom. And so I wanted to look at how do we do that in the performing arts.
Mm.
So super nerdy. Very few people. I still today, somebody will write and say, "Hey, I ran across your work. I'd love to know if you're still doing anything." And the short answer is I'm not. I've got back and focused on teaching and then leading institutions, and so I've left the research to the scholars.
Sure, sure. I'd heard that you're a practicing thespian.
I sometimes
Mhm.
I was with this role. It's very difficult
Right?
because my primary responsibility has to be to the college and our students, and so with performance, it's difficult because you can do it occasionally. I haven't done it in a couple of years. Occasionally, I'll get a former student who's shooting something,
Mhm.
and we'll say, "Hey, can you come out and do this?" And I'm like, "If it's a 1 day shot and no retakes, I'll try to squeeze it in." So
Right on.
I haven't been on stage as an actor in, oh goodness, it's been a while. I can occasionally still do a scene design because I can do that remotely and just plug in remotely. But theater is a live group effort, and so it's sometimes difficult to get all those folks together and with our schedule. So
It's definitely spontaneous and things can change at a moment's notice.
yeah.
Being prepared is the best solution.
Kind of combine those two worlds for you. One of my early areas of interest in my doctoral studies was I was fascinated to realize how many administrators, both in the K-12 world and in college, were former arts directors or former athletic coaches.
Mm.
And I, like all good research, it starts with a question. I went, huh, wonder why. And so started to explore that. And there was actually found out there was a body of research already out there that had fully explored that and
Uh-huh.
explained it. And it's exactly what you said in both of those, this tip off happens at that time, whether you're ready or not. The show opens at that time. The curtain's whatever the performance is going to start. You're dealing with highly talented, high ego
Mhm.
people. You've got to, there's conflict, the timing, and all that. So the skills that are necessary to get a team ready for an athletic event or get a choir ready for their concert is not that dissimilar than getting a work team ready for that project or whatever that is. So.
There's definitely something about an ensemble production and a team game plan that transfers really well to a successful community college.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Empower Erie and how Erie County Community College was originally organized.
Now, I certainly don't want to pretend to be the expert on this because this was generations of folks right here in Erie
Mhm.
County who fought like hell.
Started in 1980 something?
Yeah, I mean, there have been talks of the community college. Really, so the community college movement in America came about in the late 60s.
Okay.
So I believe the Community College Act in Pennsylvania was in 1963, maybe 67. I could be somewhere in there. And that was true across the U.S. So really, what had happened is, I'm going to get nerdy on you here. So after World War II, with the GI Bill, you had all these men who returned home.
Sure.
And frankly, the workforce had moved on. They had filled those jobs with others. So there were men that there was a challenge what to do. They also had these GI Bills. So we saw just a huge influx into college. That's really where college became accessible to everyone,
Mm.
right? Because it wasn't just for the wealthy, the elite, and the super smart ones. It was everyone had an opportunity for it. And so as that continued, that quickly evolved the landscape of higher education. And then William Rainey Harper, who was, I believe he was a chemist by training, was teaching at University of Chicago, and he was getting frustrated. All he wanted to do was his research. He just wanted to go into his lab and have his graduate assistants go help him with those research projects. He was getting frustrated with all these students who needed basic broad skills like basic science, basic math, basic writing. And so he actually proposed that you keep them in high school an extra year. Keep them in high school one more year, give them one more depth in that breadth layer before they go specialize in the depth, which was college was at that point. And so from that idea, Joliet Junior College was formed. And so instead of a fifth year of high school, they said, what if we created the first 2 years of college as a standalone? So then by the time you got to the senior institution, you were ready just for research.
So a better bridge from high school to college.
Yeah.
Graduate.
Yeah. I mean, so you think one of the flaws of our industry is every bit of writing that you and I took when we went to college was to prepare us to be a scholar and to get published in academic journals. I work in academia, and I haven't done that to that level intentionally in 2 or 3 years. The vast majority of people don't ever publish at that level. So it begins to challenge the question is, are we teaching the right skills in higher education? So that's where the community college movement came about in the 60s, and you saw them pop up all over the U.S.
Right.
Pennsylvania, I'll be honest, has very few community college for its population. So I came here out of the Illinois market, which is a similar size state. We had 37 community colleges.
Wow.
Pennsylvania had 14 until 2020.
So we have 67 counties, but only 14 community colleges.
Right. Yeah, and so that's a real challenge because when you think the model of a community college is essentially the third model. 1/3 will be subsidized by the state, 1/3 will be subsidized locally, and then 1/3 will be on the student. So that's how we get that affordable. The access part of the community college that we're typically in the neighborhoods where you're at. So literally in Illinois, 37 community colleges spread throughout the state, vast majority in the suburbs where the population density exists, right? But everyone in Illinois arguably has a community college within a drive. Now that drive depends. If you live in rural southern Illinois, you may be used to driving 45 minutes to an hour or something. Up in the suburbs, it may be 45 to an hour in traffic. But everyone has access to that. In the city, they're buses. Right. So Pennsylvania didn't have that, particularly Erie. So now fast forward, you see Barry Grossman, county executive from, I believe is 2010 to 2014 was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Just before, I think, Kathy Dahlkemper.
Yeah, that would be about right timing. So yeah, that's how I became aware of the movement. I was actually at a conference with a bunch of other academic nerds. And I'm never the guy that's like, let's go back to the hotel and go do our little typing and do our stuff. I'm like, come on, let's go get a beer, right? And so I get a group of peer reviewers working for the Higher Learning Commission, which is a accrediting body. We're at a conference for that, and I got them all together, and I vividly remember we're sitting around a fire outside at a bar, and they had published in one of our trade rags, I don't remember if it was Chronicle or Inside Higher Ed, about the failed effort of Erie getting a community college. And there was a line in there, and I wish I could say it verbatim, but it was like, it's the Rust Belt part of Pennsylvania that likely ought to have been put with Ohio or New York. That's how the writer described it, and I thought it was brilliant. But anyhow, so in that conversation, I said, hey, what would it be like to start a brand new college? Like, what do you think? Like, what would we do differently? What's good about what we're doing and what's not? And when you put really smart people who are passionate about their industry together, all of a sudden the ideas start flowing.
Sure.
And so that happened, I don't know, it was a decade ago or so, before I knew that it was real. And then I frankly saw that it was approved by the state, and it wasn't the right time in my personal life. So I wasn't on the market. I wasn't looking for a presidency, and actually took my kids. They said, Dad, are you going to be a college president? I'm like, yeah, at some point. But I had just gone through a divorce, and the kids lived with me in the house, and my youngest was still in high school. And my primary role at that point in my life was father. I wanted to make sure I got them through high school.
Mhm.
And then anyhow, that conversation from will you be a president turned into what's your dream job? So the boys, I have two children, they went around and shared what their dream job would be.
Mhm.
And they said, Dad, what's yours? And I said, well, it's interesting because it actually just opened out in Pennsylvania.
Ah,
And I told them this chance to build a whole new college and so forth.
you
And
didn't mention the Chicago Cubs as your dream job?
that's a retirement job. I'll go sling hot dogs or beer or
Batting coach.
usher. Yeah. No, I'm not good enough to actually help with the players, but I can help with the fans, right?
Right on.
Yeah.
Very good.
But anyhow, so that's how I became aware of it. So I was like, well, I was a vice president at college, and so I went and had a conversation with my president. I said, Clint, I'm not on the market. They're probably not even going to look at my candidacy, but I'd be a fool. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life saying I wish I would have. So I went ahead and got my materials together and sent it in, and then fast forward, and 5 years later, we're here, and the idea that they all promised and fought so hard for is coming to fruition.
Well, that fight involved the Empower Erie organization, and we're very pleased to have the support of Tom Hagen and the Susan Hagen Foundation and the funding that enabled Empower Erie to gather the legislative support because it's been so long since a new community college was established in Pennsylvania, and I think isn't Erie County Community College the only one that's north of Interstate 80?
I think it's the only one in the northwest side, on this side of the mountains, absolutely. So, Butler is our closest community
Okay.
college, and I'm not sure where. Yeah, so Butler's our closest, and it's an hour and a half, and then it's forever. And then you get down into the Pittsburgh market. So, yeah, I mean, I think the story is really fascinating. So Ron DiNicola was actually the solicitor under County Executive Grossman. And my understanding, somebody needs to write this book while all these people are here and the stories are alive, because
Absolutely.
we need to know long after we're gone how it took really the whole social network to do this advocacy. My understanding is Andre Horton and Ron DiNicola got together in 2018 or so and said, what do you think? Do we pick it up? Do we pick up that fight again?
Mhm.
And it was those two, Andre and Ron, saying everyone deserves affordable access to education, that started Empower Erie. And then they got other community members involved and other organizations involved. And then really it was getting the financial backing in order to take it from just a movement of people to an actual structured movement to lobby the State Board of Education to try to get the local delegation to support it. There was a whole plethora of work that happened from so many different organizations within that. The current county executive, Dow Kemper's administration, was working on it.
Mhm.
There were other organizations. Ron and Andre got the churches involved to make this is the morally right thing to do.
Sure.
We've been paying into the tax system all along to support community college. We're not getting the benefit of it. They worked with the Manufacturing Business Association to try to get the businesses on board. And so I think my understanding of what happened, everything just kind of melded together. Ultimately, I'll tell you, there were some very influential people here in the county that had a direct line with the governor and finally said, we need your support. And I know when Governor Wolf voiced his public support, that's where things really started rolling.
Mm.
So there was a lot of resistance and a lot of fear for good reason. There had been some failed efforts at post-secondary options where the state's investing a significant amount of tax dollars and the results just aren't there.
We have to frequently prove our results, our outcomes are making a difference in the community.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot to be said for the year 2020. And of course, we recently observed the 5-year anniversary of the Erie County Community College. And there's a couple of you that have been on staff from the very beginning. Guy Goodman, Renee Triana, yourself, a couple other folks.
Now, I think there's 10 of us total. Actually, we're doing our kickoff for the semester, and that's where we're kind of, as a college, we're kicking it off. And that's really, we had a lot of firsts in 2021. We had many firsts in 2022. We're having less and less firsts, but this is our first employee recognition. And so I actually wrote my remarks to thank those folks, and I'll just share some of the stories with you. One of them I remember is we brought in Clarissa Stewart Baker. We actually stole her from one of the other post-secondary institutions here. And I remember one of her references was a gunsmithing college.
Wow.
And I thought, I was a little skeptical. I'm like, what is that? But she walked in and knows what customer service is and knows how to guide a student who doesn't know how to college through that process, right? I remember I actually wasn't the first employee. Dr. Carrie Bowman,
Okay.
our vice president of student affairs. I emphasize that because she's just been promoted. She was hired as a dean, was promoted to an assistant vice president. We're just recently I promoted her vice president because she has matured our service deliverable to our students.
Mm.
She actually met me the first day I walk in, and I don't know anything, right? I drove all night through with all my stuff packed in the truck, and I'm staying in a hotel trying to buy a house. And I walk into the Chamber of Commerce building. And I walk in and, hi, and they introduce a couple employees, and then Carrie walks. She goes, hi, I'm Carrie. Here. And she pulls out a list of like 15 questions. She's like, I need answers on these. And I'm like, okay. So we answered those questions. And it felt like in those early days, as soon as we got through that, we had other questions. So we had an interim president, Dr. Judith Gay, who
Okay.
worked for Community College of Philadelphia, had come in an interim role, and she was absolutely critical to starting this place. She actually did the hard work and hired our founding faculty. There were initially 5 founding faculty. One has since moved on, but those 4 founding faculty are also recognized as 5-year employees. So pretty awesome opportunity. So Guy Goodman's is a great story.
Hmm.
So Guy Goodman and I worked together at a college back in 2010. I think he left to go to Arizona in 2011 or so. And Guy was a vice president, and I was a brand new dean, so I didn't know a thing. But Guy was instrumental in helping me shape. So in my industry, there's this divide between, are you on the academic side or the student affairs side?
Mm.
And I joke that academics start with the answer is no, work harder, and student affairs start with the answer is yes. Well, one thing I've learned about customer service, that's all the student cares about. How do you help me?
Mhm.
I think at a recent conference, one of the staff came back and they said, Chris, I heard you up there. They said, the student only has one question. Can you help me or not? They don't care what department, they don't care what you teach, they don't care what you do. Can you help me or not? So Guy was really instrumental in helping me think about the student experience, not from a traditional scholarly perspective or
Mm.
academic rigor only, right? It started to help me think about, but wait, if we're a community college and we attract first generation students who don't have people in their house, who typically don't have people in their household who navigated the college experience, who are also working part-time or raising children or caring for their parents, why aren't we addressing those realities that our students are living in instead of pretending they're all like those students pre-GI Bill that
Mhm.
went off to college, got sent on a train, come back at Christmas from wealthy families? And so that really, I started to think quite differently. And in my whole career after that became, how do I break down those barriers? How do I use my position as a faculty member, as a dean, as a vice president, to be a voice for those students who don't know how to college? And so Guy was critical in that. So the funny part of this story is, so I get the job and it gets a lot of press. Guy reaches out to me on LinkedIn and is like, hey dude, congratulations. It's awesome. I'm so happy for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, Guy, I haven't talked to you forever. How are you, man? How's Denise and how are the kids and blah, blah, blah. And we chatted a little bit. He said, you know what? I'm getting to that point in my career where maybe one more position. So if you need a dean out there,
Mm.
you want somebody to come help out with student affairs, happy to help.
That's a great story because people from Philadelphia to Illinois came together in Erie and made an impact in the community. And that's actually part of the Erie County Community College Charter, to be mindful and intentional about how we are actively taking a role in developing the community.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the community college, our motto, where we fit, like I say it, and I don't mean it just talking about it, we are truly the community's college.
Mhm.
So what matters to Erie County is what matters to the college. And I can't distinguish those things. We are only for our local service area, right? So a lot of colleges do this. They say, we want to be the premier community college, the community college of choice.
Mhm.
I think that's silly. It defeats who we are. You know who I want to be the premier community college for? Erie County residents, because
Right.
that's who I'm designed to serve. So if, in our particular, we have strong healthcare system, we have a desperate need in manufacturing,
Right.
we have we have hospitality that higher ed hasn't really figured out how to serve that sector or that industry very well. But those are the types of programs we offer. But if we were a community college in rural Texas, you're probably going to see a lot more wind turbine and a lot of oil production.
Solar.
And that's the nature of a community college. We develop our programming for, of, and by the communities we serve.
Sure. And some of the role that the community college plays in serving the community is involved in career services and also the Youth Leadership Institute.
Yeah. So, we look at one of our pride and joys at the college is we brag about doing college differently, right? Because frankly, I'll be honest, the college model is failing. We're seeing it across the nation. Institutions can't weather two hiccups, whether it's a cyber attack or whether it's a natural disaster that hurts one enrollment cycle. They don't have the reserves to keep open. Well, that's on them. We've got to do better when running colleges. And so I think that so as part of that, I believe in all partnerships. So colleges tend to try to want to be everything to everyone. But if you've ever run a business, that's silly.
There's a recent news article about Syracuse University reducing something like 20% of its programs to adjust to the changing market, while Erie County Community College is expanding and growing. And the local industry allies involving, the trades, Central Labor Council, you mentioned the Manufacturing and Business Association.
Yeah, so for every one of our programs, we have what's called a program advisory committee. So if I'm offering programming in ceramic mug making, right? What I want to do is when we build that curriculum, I want to find the people right here in Erie County that are doing that job or their immediate supervisor. I don't want CEOs and I don't want VPs of HR, because if you want to know what's going on in the college, don't ask me. Go ask Guy, go ask Carrie, go ask Frank. Those are the folks that are really in the grind and running the college. So with our program advisory committees, we get them together and we ask them to do a couple of things. One, give us a check and balance. Are we teaching the right things? Are we teaching on the right equipment? What trends are coming that we may not be aware of? What should we be preparing students for? We ask them, you're hiring our graduates. What are you seeing they're doing well and where are you seeing they're deficient? Right?
The welding program is kind of a good example where there's the full course, which is a year long, but there's also micro credentials for MIG or TIG or stick welding.
Yeah, so if you're working in a manufacturing plant right now and they're getting ready to bring a new line on or they're getting a new piece of equipment or you want a job that pays a little bit more, you may say, I want to be a welder. Well, you may only need to do one of those types of welding, right? And a lot of production line work, it may be doing a simple or not a series of complex welds, but a pretty straightforward weld over and over and over, right? But you still have to know the safety of it. You have to know the strength of it and all that. So what we've done on the micro credentials, we've designed, instead of saying you got to come learn everything about all types of welding, if the reality is in your job, you're only going to need that part, why don't we design curriculum, not just for the student, but for the companies?
Sure.
So we can get in there, provide that specialized training. Now, the reason we call them micro credentials is because we know this from just like we all evolve, our students evolve. They may think, all I want to do is get this so I can go earn $2 an hour more. Well, then they do that and they start to say, but how do they do that part of welding? So then they can come back and take another section and eventually they can build that into a certificate or a degree.
Yeah, we all work for incentive, and that stackable course from micro-credential to the full training is essential. Earlier this year, the Erie County Community College brought home a trophy for the Allied Health Program, the anatomage table.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the anatomage, and anatomage, they all pronounce it differently, and even folks at the company pronounce it differently.
Right.
So I give up on trying to understand it. So, yeah, so like what we do, if you're going to have a healthcare program, a strong healthcare, you have to have cadavers for students to learn on. And so there's a couple different approaches to that, right? At my last institution, we actually had cadavers. But let me tell you some challenges with cadavers. So cadavers are human remains. And they have to ethically. There are so many. It's the right thing to do. It's a human body that's been given their body for science. But so there's a cost to attain them, right? There's a lifespan on those. You have to return that. So you have to return it, and anything that, if you think what's called a prosection, it's the opposite of dissection. So prosection, each cadaver can be taken down. One, we want to show the venous system, and I'm not healthcare, so I'm probably saying it wrong. One, we want to show the muscles. Another part of the body, we may want to take it all the way down to the bones. We may want to leave some of the organs in place. So depending on how you prep those. Well, and then because it's a human remain, it has to be put in a fluid or in a room-controlled temperature, and then you've got gas and so forth. So we were able to say, that's not financially sustainable. Let me be honest, it's just not. I'm going to need to invest over $250,000 a year just to have cadavers. So we were able actually, this is a great story. One of our students in our surgical technology program, somehow the faculty member must have mentioned that we were looking to get an animatage. An animatage is basically exactly cadaver, but it's a computer where you can do all of those things on a computer image of 8 or 9 corpses that we have in there.
Goodness.
So they're actually scanned to different levels. And so I wish Bailey Schaefer, our director of healthcare, and I could visually show this, but she goes on there and she just says, this is a scalpel. She'll make a square, taps off, the layer of skin comes off.
Sure.
And then next she goes, well, let's see what's under that. She taps that off, the layer of subcutaneous something smarter than me comes off. And she can go all the way down with that. And so, but the way that came about was really neat. So somehow the A&P instructor must have mentioned that we were hoping to get one. So we randomly get a call of a gentleman that used to work here in Erie, but out of state at the time, and says, hey, my daughter's in the program. I know you're looking for that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to donate a good chunk. I've got 2 other friends that are going to donate a good chunk. You're going to apply to this foundation because I know who's on that board, and they're going to donate a big chunk, and then you're going to have to raise a small chunk, and we're going to have an animatage table for your students. And so it was generosity of our students' parents in that case who made that come to fruition.
So it sounds like the table is like 3 or 4 feet wide and maybe 6 to 8 feet long, and it has this touch surface interaction with the teacher and the student.
Yeah, it's even a little bit better than that. All of that is true. But the other part about that is then we can take that. So instead of trying to get 20 students in an A&P class to crowd around and see the detail of the kidney or the muscle or whatever it is, we can actually take that image, it's on the table, and project it either to iPads that students want to carry so they want to make notes. We can put it on TVs all across the room. Very useful tool.
Cutting edge technology.
And here's the beauty. When I need to upgrade that, so instead of having to pay $20,000 for a new cadaver and another $10,000 to prep the cadaver and all the shipping costs that go with that, I don't know the cost of the package, I can go buy 8 more cadavers that have been scanned in there. And so the technology we can add to that over and over. And here's the cool part. For our students who are going to be serious in the healthcare systems, so everyone in healthcare needs to be introduced to anatomy and physiology. But those that are doing things, like if you're going to be a physical therapy assistant, you need to know the body very well. We're actually going to partner with LECOM and see if we can go over there because they have actually a giant room full of cadavers as a medical school.
Oh my.
So we can make a partnership. So not only do you get the digital experience that's safe and so forth, but you can actually interact with cadavers as needed.
So the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine is the largest medical school in the United States. And Erie County Community College is building a bridge and a pipeline directly into that school.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work very closely from day one. They reached out and said, how do we help? Dr. Sylvia Ferretti, who runs the academic programs of it, she gets it. She's like, here's where we specialize. Here's what we don't do well. And here's what you guys do well. So we're talking constantly about bridges and partnerships. So not to let too much of a cat out of the bag, but one of those that we're interested in is I get a lot of pressure on dental hygiene or dental assistants. That's great. Why don't I get pressure on like math or English? It's just a classroom because I've got those. To put a dental lab up and get that scaled up, it's a significant investment, $500,000 plus. And so I was sharing with Dr. Ferretti about some of our challenges. She said, hey, is there a way that we can partner? Like we have a dental lab that's used for dental training. Is there a way? And so we were exploring options like that. So like when we built our new Center for Health Sciences, Dr. Ferretti and her team walked through because she too was going to need to build a sim lab. So we're trying to say, is there a way, instead of both of us investing in simulated labs, that we could find a way to kind of share that? I don't think of other institutions as competition, right? Our mission is clear. We want to provide affordable, accessible education to every resident of Erie County. So if that's already being done at another institution, whether state, private, we don't need to be in that space because they already have access to an affordable one. Challenge is there's some programs out there that aren't affordable. So that's where there could be competition, but we're trying to be careful about that, right? As we're new, we're trying to shape our growth into areas that most need in the workforce, that pay a family-sustaining wage. And so when you start with those criterion, and we do what's called a feasibility study, because I get 3 times a week somebody says you should have programming in this.
Mm.
So we do a full study. We look at all the job data. We look at the salary range. We talk to employers to say how many openings are there now? How many do you project in the next 10 years? And then we do the financial elements of it.
Sure.
What's needed to start this program? What would the ongoing costs be? Is there specialized accreditation? If so, what are the regulations and stipulations around that? And then we put that whole packet together. And then I usually get the unpleasant job of sitting back down with that person who had that idea and said, hey, this is a great idea and I hear you. It's not financially sustainable. So it's going to need about a $500,000 startup cost, and it's going to run in a deficit of about $150,000 a year. So I need to find a corporate sponsor to help offset those. And if so, I'm willing to take this one step further and see if my board will support training in that.
That collaborative approach with an ensemble of teamwork it really came to the community's attention a couple years ago, just before the founding of EC3, when Amazon announced that it was looking to place a new hub for distribution, for production, and Erie was being considered, but at that time, the community college had not yet been organized. And so maybe there's a chance for some future development with Amazon. Now the Erie County Community College is up and running.
Yeah, so that's one more benefit of having a community college. So I'll share you with the story. I was working in Harvard, Illinois. At my last McHenry County College was the college I was at, and I was with Harvard working with their mayor and their chamber, and they're trying to court a business that was in Jamesville, Wisconsin. Sorry, I'm right above the border somewhere. I'm confusing Jamestown, New York with James. I don't even know the name of it anymore. There was a company there that was desperately trying to get folks. It's primarily welding. I don't want to simplify what they did, but they built giant diesel tanks that fueled like hospital generators. All custom work. But they needed so many welders. And so they came down and the company owner said, well, look, if you can get me 30 employees, I'll open a plant right here in Harvard.
Goodness.
And the mayor looked at me and I went, do it. So we immediately were able to shift ours.
Fantastic.
And I said, Mayor, you're going to help me find people, right? If you help me help the pipeline in, I can do the training part. And that's really what the community college does. I'm in those, I'm not an economic development expert by any means, but I'll tell you, I've been in enough of those conversations. It starts with, do you have the infrastructure? So if you don't have a good highway, rail, shipping system, whatever that looks like for the industry, you're not going to be considered. Do you have a workforce? And do you have training available? The community college across most of the rest of the nation is seen as the primary training for entry for the jobs that do that. Here's how I distinguish. So like a lot of people say, but how are you different than Penn State Barron? They have a really good, strong, and they do a lot in manufacturing. Way oversimplify it. Penn State Barron trains the people who are going to likely sit behind a computer up in an office, working on plans, right? They're going to be working at high level. I'm not. I'm training the person on the front line who's operating the program logic controller, the machine, the CNC. They're the ones that are doing the actual work. Now, not to say that there's not some crossover, but the concept of training is much different. I'm training how to do a job. Often those jobs are training how to create or to plan and so forth. And so it's drastically different, but we know where we fit. So on the education side, Dr. Ford and I, we get it because we know where we fit. The general community, we're still educating them on the differences.
That creates enormous potential for industry and for healthcare and many other businesses here in Erie. Dr. Gray, can you talk a little bit about dual enrollment and dual credit?
Yeah, so you're getting nerdy on the terms there. My staff corrects me all the time. Everyone calls it differently. So here's essentially our approach to that. We know that if a student anywhere in their high school experience gets one college credit, they have an 82% chance of completing a certificate or a degree from a college.
There's one credit.
One credit. Why in the heck are we not, as a nation, bending over backwards And I can hypothesize why.
Okay.
I wasn't college bound. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't good enough. People from my neighborhood didn't go to college. But if I had taken a dual credit course in high school and went, wait, I passed that?
You can do it.
I can do it. That's, I think, is the primary thing. And so because of that, so we have a broad approach to how we do. We have so many different models of dual credit. So we're sitting on a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So right now, all this year, dual credit is zero cost to any student. It may be zero cost to every student in the future too. Depends on how we figure out what that looks like. So let me just tell you a couple programs.
Sure.
So in Fort LaBeouf and in Corey, our model is we actually send, and we're Union City as well. We send instructors to their school. So they say, look, I really need a physics course taught. I don't have instructors qualified to teach physics. We say, cool, let's partner. We make it a dual credit course. We send one of our physics instructors to their location and we can offer a course. In Corey, it's actually their high school teacher has the right credentials. So their med term that she's teaching, we give that college credit as well, right? Let's talk what happens down at the Skill Center, the Voc Tech High School or the Erie County Technical School. So in that case, like they had a backlog of, they had too many students wanting to get into welding that couldn't get in. So I went with their director, Matt Laverde, and I said, Matt, how do we solve this problem? So what we did is we opened up our lab. So we're actually taking all their overflow. And when we did that, we said, let's make sure all those kids who are taking your program and get college credit as well. Another cool model, another way we're doing it is Erie High School actually buses students to us their junior and senior year. So for 2 full years, they come on our campus half a day and they're at Erie High or Cathedral Prep, or sorry, Erie High or Collegiate half the day. And they technically graduate with their associate degree at absolutely no cost out of pocket about 2 hours before they receive their high school diploma.
Wonderful.
So that's what we will eventually, it's going to take a generation or two because we're new and people aren't used to it. We will eventually be the primary dual credit provider in the area. And that's just the model that community colleges are.
There's a long-term commitment between Erie County Community College and Erie County Technical School.
Right. Yeah, so we actually, we are one of our, where our manufacturing training is actually happens on their campus. And there's 2 buildings on that campus, if you're familiar with it. The large building is the high school, and the small building is where we are.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to grow our manufacturing because, frankly, it was a building that was built for that. It makes perfect sense. It's right in the center of the county, right? It's approachable for everyone.
Close to I-90.
Yeah, right off both interstates in reality. It's just south, no, I shouldn't say south because I don't know directions. It's near the mall.
Okay, just south of the lake.
Yes, there we go. But it's a really good location for that. And it's also drawing students who are interested in those technical skills are already familiar with that. So it's a great location for us, and it's been a great partnership. We've been able to articulate credit across both Corey's technical school and Erie's technical school and Erie County's technical school. So here's the reality. The highest level course you take in high school is often the exact same curriculum as the lowest level in college. So why are we forcing students to repeat that? So what we've done, our deans have worked closely with their faculty and administrators. We've done the crosswalk. So if you go to any of those programs and you come to EC3 and continue your education, that you're going to have credit earned in some of those areas.
Amazing. I think one of the other developments people pay attention to is whether or not there have been critical safety incidents on campus. And we want to assure the county that EC3 is a very safe space for the students. And can you talk a little bit about things that have happened on campus and how that's been addressed?
Yeah, so the short and great story is very little has happened on campus. And that's, we're lucky, right? Like any public place, there's often incidents. It's often sometimes centered around mental health. EC3 is very safe at all of our locations, whether you're in Corey, whether you're at the YLI, whether you're on our West Campus at the old Villa Maria, or whether you're down at the Skills Center. Each of them has a slightly different approach to the safety based off of the circumstance of the building and so forth. But really, there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that folks don't see. So there's a whole network and infrastructure that we can kick into place if need be. So without sharing too much of the details of that, because some of that, we have a crisis team that's trained. So there's 2 different teams on the campuses. One is a behavioral intervention team. So Jeffrey, if you're a student and you say, hey, this other student was doing something that was just kind of weird, you make that report. Then our staff who's trained in those issues assesses it, determines whether they want to have a conversation to follow up. They may look in the student's record. They may intervene and say, hey, what's going on, right? And find out it's innocuous or find out there's some issues and align them with some services that may help them get better on track. There's also another one that's trained to respond to a non-emergency situation. So if you have a student or a community member, an early on one, we had an unhoused person come into campus. We were all in a room for a meeting. It was not during a typical school time. That person walked into the main office, went to the refrigerator, took people's lunches.
Wow.
So it caused controversy. Oh my gosh, they stole from us. Hold on. Yes, they did. Here's the deal. Let me go. I'll replace your all lunch right now. It's on me. I'm not getting the police involved. We don't need police involved for a hunger shoot, right? I wish that if the person would have asked, I would have gladly bought them whatever they needed. So,
Right on.
but we learn from that, right? We learn when we pull full faculty, we got to lock the campus down because our campus is designed that we have people at different positions. In some of our locations, there are panic buttons for those that are in the most sensitive.
Okay.
And those panic buttons they notify both police that we need an immediate response and they notify internal team. And those in the internal team, we all go through training in de-escalation, different techniques. And many of us have been in education for so long. A lot of times when you walk in and there's a point of tension, sometimes just having an extra perspective will do it. And then ultimately, all of our senior leadership has all gone through federal FEMA. There we go, is the right word. We've all gone through FEMA training. So God forbid an incident. For instance, I was running a campus in southern Indiana when a bird flu broke out. And so the local health department lady called me and said, hey, we've had this bird flu and we're going to institute, there's a technical term for it. And I was like, oh, wow, you know what that means, right? I don't think she was prepared. So I actually emptied the building out. And we literally within 24 to 48 hours, there were over 400 people in the area from the state and federal. And I learned all sorts. There are stashes. The FEMA has stashes of mechanisms in which to kill birds so they can't spread bird flu. I was not, but thankfully I'd had the training. I had never experienced one myself. And so the first one I got to experience was through a non-college related emergency. So I was thankful, but having had that experience, and then we have staff that are trained in the mental health and then staff that are trained in the real serious situations.
Sure.
That they go into these, we do these tabletop exercises so we can prepare for them. So we're hopefully not taken off guard. We could be, right? It can happen, but really our job isn't to do police, fire, and ambulance. That they take care of the emergency. Right. Our job is to keep the operations of the college, the continuity of the student experience and the student safe, and communicate with the students.
Training and preparation is so key to a successful organization, and it adds up to institutional memory to be prepared the next time. And I understand that Erie County Community College has upgraded the parking lot lighting. And also there's construction going on right now for an ADA compliant elevator.
Yeah, so we're in the early phases on that. So we have an elevator in our west campus in Erie that it meets code. But I'll tell you what, if we're going to truly be inclusive, we have to truly be inclusive. Mm-hmm. If you're in a motorized wheelchair, good luck on that. You may be able to get in the elevator, but it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to put that student in an awkward position. So we're committed to saying that's not who we are. So we're looking at probably next summer this time when we'll probably go ahead and break ground and we'll actually put an ADA compliant, modern ADA compliant elevator in. Yeah, we have all sorts of safety upgrades that happen. Some of them are public and some are not.
The bathrooms have been upgraded?
Yeah, the bathrooms have been upgraded, absolutely. If you were familiar with Villa Maria, I would encourage you to come see EC3, our Erie West campus. We've tried to pay homage. We respect that the building's been long built for a college, built as Villa Maria College, then a high school and so forth. And so it's got a long history of education, but we've totally renovated the building. We've been able to leverage over $6 million in state and federal money back into Erie County. These are your tax dollars.
Sure.
We've been able to leverage them back. So for instance, there's all new roofs on that particular building. There's almost $1 million worth of new windows. We've put, the cafeteria is now a mini health center, right? We've redone hallways. We've put bathrooms. The problem with it having been a women's or a girls' high school, there were a lot of restrooms for females. There were not a lot of restrooms for males, but now we have up to code bathrooms on all three of the main floors. So,
and your main campus is actually on West 8th Street.
Yeah, so we have to call it a main campus from accreditation, but it's, you know what the main campus is? Where's the student feel most comfortable? So if you're on the east side and YLI is where you call that's your EC3, that's their main campus. So it's our largest location, so we staff most of our employees there, but it's only because we have the space there.
As you mentioned, accreditation, and we're rounding out our conversation today. Can you talk a little bit about the process of accreditation and also the FAFSA process and the Pioneer scholarships?
Yeah, I will be so glad not to be a startup college and never have to do this. I mean, I've worked in higher ed since 1998. I've done things the last 5 years I didn't even know happened because every other college has had them in place. So yeah, so accreditation, we applied, we opened classes September 1, 2021. In December, I sent a letter to Middle States, the intent that we would be applying for accreditation. Our visit's actually coming up this fall, and we will be accredited in March that will backdate to 2024.
Okay.
So we will be an accredited institution at that point. Right now, we're a candidate, we have a relationship, but this will make us, and they'll take the candidacy portion off, and we're just accredited. And then once you become the candidate, then we're able to go get federal funds. And so here's what's important about the Title IV, the federal grants. So the common listener knows those as grants and loans from the federal government.
Sure.
Erie is a poverty-stricken county. Whether you're talking the urban poverty or the rural poverty, here's the reality. While we're subsidized already through the Erie County government and through the state, that extra, $200 or so a credit hour means we're out of reach for many Erie families. Here's where the Title IV funds mean. Our total cost, if you took a full year of classes at Erie County Community College, is probably going to be less than $6,000. If you are Pell eligible, if you meet the guidelines for the federal government to get a Pell grant, you're going to have all of that covered, all of your books, and you may even get a refund to help offset your travel expenses or your housing expenses. So it's critical, and it opens the door to so many people who had economic disadvantage to accessing the other great institutions of higher ed here in Erie County.
That definitely allows people to earn their associate's degree, but have the hope and the opportunity to complete a bachelor's degree.
Oh, we've got them everywhere, right? I'm on a board and I was served in that. And afterwards, a young lady comes up to me. She goes, "Hey, Dr. Gray, I graduate from you guys, boom, and I'm graduating Gannon this year." And so I'm hearing those stories, and it makes me so happy. So yeah, every local institution has reached out and said, "How do we partner? How do we help? We want your graduates to come to us." Those that are senior graduates, like, holy cow, they're confident, they're prepared, they're ready, we want them. So we have articulation agreements with over 30 institutions, right? So anybody who graduates EC3 automatically gets into any of the PASHE institutions at junior level status. So there's a number of benefits. We've made sure those pathways we talked about early on, from even all the way coming in, we've making sure that those pathways exist for our students once they leave us.
That makes Erie County Community College all the more credible to the established universities in Erie. And we definitely want to talk a little bit as we finish up today about the strategic planning and the future of Erie County Community College. I know we've all heard about the Burton School project on the east side of Erie and some of the hydroponic gardening and solar panels. And what kinds of future strategic accomplishments do you envision for EC3?
Yeah, so I think you're gonna see a slow but intentional academic growth. We're gonna continue to focus on those jobs on the higher. So the state produces a list of high occupation jobs, priority jobs. Where are the most openings? We focus on those because we serve the local workforce. Our job is to help provide qualified people to fill the jobs we have right here. We also say, does it provide a family-sustaining wage? Because ethically, we should not ask our students to invest their time or their money if they're going to have to squeak by, right? And so that's a challenge. So that's where you're going to see growth, right? You're going to see incredible growth in the healthcare. We will likely grow. IT is changing rapidly. It's hard to keep up with the change in IT. Our business degree is very popular because it's a versatile degree, and our transfer programs are always popular. So you'll see academic growth. Really, in terms of facility, the next thing the next big thing you'll probably see from EC3 is we know as we're growing, we haven't outgrown our campus on West, but we need more space on the East. When you look at where the population density is, particularly in the urban hub on the East side, and then when you overlay that map with the travel pattern and with the fact that 60% plus of those households are public transit dependent,
right?
We have to serve those students. And so My board of trustees has actually we're forming a advisory group that's going to work on the outside
Right.
and help shape the types of criterion that I, as the president and the board, may want to look at as we consider where our east expansion is. And then there are a lot of great opportunities to partner with organizations out there. I think Gary Horton with the UE CDC is
Mhm.
doing some fantastic work in aquaponics and hydroponics, and then
Right.
even the urban farming.
Yeah.
So there's some great partnership opportunities there, but whether they turn into full blood academic programs or whether it's just a partnership,
Mhm.
that's where we have those, and we have those partnerships across the board with different organizations. I actually just today I met with somebody who's trying to fill the new constructions happening in the Bayfront. There's an intentional effort to try to make sure there are local folks working those crews,
Right.
and particularly local folks that represent diverse areas. And so
Mhm.
that was a pathway. And so because of my connections with so many other institutions, I said, "Hey, have you talked to this person and this
Sure.
person?" And so really, we see ourselves as part of the broader economic ecosystem to make sure that Erie County continues to thrive as an even better place to live and work.
The Erie Crawford Central Labor Council has tremendous connections to the skilled trades with plumbers, electricians, welders, boilermakers,
Yeah.
carpenters, painters, a real wealth of resources for collaboration. And we've also, observed the benefit of the partnership with Mayor Daria Devlin and also County Executive Christina Vogel.
Former EC3 board member Christina Vogel. I remind
Very
people
good.
before she was I ran into the governor with her, and somebody started introducing the county executive, and I interrupted. I said, "No, Josh, she's an EC3 board member." And so they quickly corrected that because I guess county executive is a little more important title, but Christina was one of our founding board members and was critical to helping establish us and helping us build credibility in the community.
In her own way, she graduated from the board of EC3 and has now taken on a new leadership position.
She's still a huge supporter and fan of us, and
Wonderful.
and she's us as a tool and a partner to help grow the economic viability of Erie County.
Well, today is Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. Dr. Gray, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the Common Liberty podcast. We've enjoyed a really full conversation about the founding and growth and the future of Erie County Community College.
Wow, thank you, Jeffrey. I'm always happy to share the story of our college, and I'm always happy to advocate for our students because we've got to be a voice for them.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe for the Common Liberty podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and load the clip.